Cannibalism. Could you eat a whole human being? With the help of a doctor, a scientist and a chef, I set out to see if it's possible. Cannibalism. Part 8. The Brain. Brain. The favourite food of a zombie, but rarely a cannibal. But are they too afraid? In 1978, Robert Maudsley murdered 2 prisoners on his wing. The second being William Roberts, who he stabbed in the head with a homemade shiv, smashed his skull against the wall, and although broken, according to the pathologist's report, the brain remained intact. But when less reliable tabloids got hold of the story, the knife became a spoon, and Robert Maudsley was branded the Brain Eater. But why is this act so terrifying and morally wrong? Because if our skin is our identity, the brain is our personality and our soul. It's the very essence of who we are, as without it, we're just a sack of meat. Weighing roughly 3 pounds, or 1 1/3 kilos, and being the size of both fists combined, the brain is split into 3 parts. The hindbrain, which controls the body's vital organs. The midbrain, which acts as a relay for the senses, movement and pain. And the forebrain interprets sensory input and decision-making. Protected by the skull, cerebrospinal fluid, and encased in a tough outer layer called the dura mater, the brain's 100 billion neurons pass data at speeds of 250 miles an hour. It uses 20% of our oxygen and blood. It feels no pain. And while we're awake, it generates enough electricity to power a small light bulb. Every animal has a brain, with the exception of a jellyfish, sea sponges, clams, and most football pundits. Symbolically, the brain plays a key role in love and war. The Four, an indigenous tribe of Papua New Guinea, are said to eat the hearts and brains of their dead to honour them. And although unproven, the dictatorial president of Equatorial Guinea is said to eat the flesh, the testicles and the brains of his enemies. Likewise, with many serial killers, brain eating is symbolic of unrequited love, control and domination. In 1989, Daniel Rakowitz murdered his roommate Monica Burl, claiming he loved her. Dismembering her in a bath, he boiled her remains, and having liquefied her brain into what he called a creamy soup, he said, "I tasted it, and I liked it." Only to supposedly feed it to the homeless in New York's Tompkins Square Park. So is a brain a suitable meal for a cannibal? Well, yes. Even Paleolithic cannibals knew the value of a human brain, as it comprises of 10% membrane, 30% water and proteins, but 60% fat. Dr. Jim Stepani, a Yale-certified nutritionist, said, "The brain would provide slow-burning energy as it's high in fat and glucose." Comprising of roughly 2,700 calories, enough to keep a cannibal alive for a day. With it weighing 1,300 grams and being more than the recommended daily intake of 100 grams of cholesterol a day, a cannibal could safely eat a brain over 13 days. But as a one-off meal, it wouldn't be a problem if they wolfed it down. Journalist Carl Hoffman, who witnessed the Asmat tribe of New Guinea, said, "They shook the brains out onto a leaf of a palm, scraped the inside of a skull with a knife to get out every last bit, then mixed the mass with sago, wrapped the leaf up and roasted it on a fire." Although when TV host Reza Aslan ate brain with the Agori tribe, he said, "The brains tasted of charcoal, as they were burnt to a crisp." Which is a shame, as being described as soft, fatty and a bit waxy, with a texture like rich scrambled egg cooked in lamb's fat. Composed mostly of fatty tissue, it has a very mild, almost sweet flavour and a soft texture akin to heavily whipped cream, and it's rich in vitamin B12 and omega-3 fatty acids. Like sheep's brains, human brain tissue is pale yellow. It has a slightly spongy feel, but being neither rubbery nor tough, it can be easily cut with a knife. In Slovakia, pig's brains are mixed with ground meat, eggs and pickles. In Asia, lamb brain is pan-fried with salt and ginger. In the Middle East, it's soaked in milk. Or as Peter Bryan said, having fried it, "I ate his brain with butter. It was nice." And although full of calories and nutrients, as the survivors of the Andes plane crash can testify, brain tissue can be deadly. From 1957 to 1960, 1,000 members of the 20,000-strong Four tribe of New Guinea died of kuru, a rare and incurable disorder caused by eating infected brain tissue, resulting in tremors, slurred speech, memory loss, not unlike mad cow disease and dementia, and finally death. Brain eating seems acceptable if it's committed by indigenous tribes with long-held beliefs. But in the West, it's still seen as shocking, and for good reason. In 2009, Otis Sanchez of Texas, who had a history of mental illness, was hearing voices following the birth of her son. Triggering a postpartum psychosis, she murdered her 3-week-old son at the devil's orders, eating his brain, nose, and toes. Like many of these ancient tribes, it was said, by eating his brain, she wanted him to live on inside of her. Join me tomorrow for possibly the least palatable part of the human body, the hair.